Today, I will be ranking all the roller coasters at Cedar Point. Cedar Point is the greatest amusement park in the world with the best and most well-rounded coaster lineup. And this amusement park has a total of 17 roller coasters as of 2024, and today I will be ranking all of them from first to worst. But before we start, I haven't been on Top Thrill 2 because it refuses to open, but other than that, let's start. Wilderness Run is a solid kiddie coaster, but it is just a kid's coaster, so no major thrill. In 16th place is Corkscrew. This is the worst thrill coaster at the park, and it's not really close. This ride just hasn't stood the test of time. The old arrow inversions are not properly designed and aren't very fun. The first drop has airtime, but it feels very janky. The corkscrews are just very rough and not that fun. But I do think that it should stay around since it's historical and the interaction with the midways are pretty cool. Next up is Woodstock Express. This is another kiddie/family coaster. This is a very solid family coaster with a solid amount of turns and a solid height. This ride is pretty smooth and a good step up from Wilderness Run. 14th place is Cedar Creek Mine Ride. This is another step-up coaster and more thrilling compared to Woodstock Express, but not as thrilling as the other major coasters in the park. This ride is relatively smooth, and the turns and drops are pretty fun, but it is very janky. And because it's janky, the transitions are kind of like Corkscrew, not very good. But overall, a solid family coaster for this park. At number 12 is Iron Dragon. Iron Dragon is a solid family coaster that's definitely better than Cedar Creek Mine Ride, but it could have been a lot better. Compared to the other Arrow suspended coasters like the Bat at Kings Island, this one just doesn't hold up. The first half is very boring, being that it goes through some trees, which is nice, but there's no real thrill. And then you have a couple solid turns at the end over the water, but I just think that this ride could have been so much better if they made it a little bit more thrilling. But I give Wild Mouse the best family coaster in the park. This ride is really fun, and for what it is, it's pretty good. The spinning on this ride when spinning really fast makes this a very fun ride. The turns, drops, helices are all very fun, and when spinning, makes the experience that much better. This ride is a perfect fit for the boardwalk part of the park, and the spinning is a unique facet of this ride that isn't found anywhere else in the park. The first major thrill coaster on the list, Rougarou. This is a mediocre looper. The first drop is solid, but there is a trim, and then you go through 4 inversions. The inversions are fine, but they just don't have a lot of force to them. The loop and corkscrew are solid, but the other two are pretty forgettable. And the layout is very subpar compared to many other B&M loopers, but the ending is pretty cool, being that it's different compared to the others. It's full of fast-paced and whippy turns and overbanks, which is pretty unique. Overall, it's a solid looper that's smooth and has a good ending, but it could be a lot better. The only wooden coaster at the park is up next. Blue Streak is a overall solid woody, but you can tell it's getting quite old. The out and back layout is pretty fun with good airtime throughout the whole experience, but you can tell that it's starting to get pretty rough. This coaster could be so much better if it was smoother, and Cedar Point should try to fix it up. I know a woody off the lake is pretty hard to maintain, but if Blue Streak was smooth, it would be like Racer at Kings Island, and that ride is awesome, and it would elevate this ride up in the park's rankings by so much. At 8 is Magnum XL 200. I know this seems quite low, but I think this ride is very overrated. The aero transitions on this ride are very much like an aero mine train. And those types of transitions on a 200-foot roller coaster makes for a not very pleasant experience. And the only good thing about the ride, the final airtime hills are very hit or miss for me. So overall, the bad transitions and the inconsistencies put it at number 8 for me. Another arrow in Gemini. This ride is much more enjoyable compared to Magnum XL 200 in my opinion. Because of the very simple layout, even though it's older than Magnum, the transitions are better and more bearable compared to Magnum XL 200. And all the drops and hills provide pretty good floater airtime here and there. Now, the restraints on this in Magnum don't allow for a lot of airtime, but the airtime you do get is really fun. And the racing between red and blue train and high-fiving each other on the other train is super unique and really fun. A very underrated ride in Valravn is here. People act like this isn't a fun ride and give it a hard time, but it's really fun. The drop is 220 feet straight down at 90 degrees, which is stomach-wrenching. Then you go through an Immelman and have a second drop. You finish with a good 0G roll and a solid airtime hill. The ride is smooth from start to finish, and I don't think that the vests are the best restraints in the world, but I think that people over-hate on them, and they're not that bad. And I'm very upset to not see this ride in the top 5, because I do think that this ride is very good, but the top 5 is just that good. The top 5 of this park is maybe the best top 5 out of any park in the world, and even though I haven't been on Top Thrill 2 and it's not in my top 5, it's still elite. But the first coaster in my top 5 is... Number 5 is Raptor. This ride is intense from start to finish, and maybe the most intense ride in all of Ohio. You go through back-to-back inversions for pretty much the entire ride, and it's just so forceful. The loop is very intense, and the corkscrew, 0G roll, and the cobra roll are all very whippy. And that 0G roll is amazing. You float out of your seat the entire time, and it's great. And the ending with the double helix is maybe some of the most intense roller coaster track in all of Ohio, and definitely some of the best that I've been on. The best B&M looper in the park, in my opinion, is GateKeeper. This ride is another ride that gets a lot of slander that it really doesn't deserve. This ride has an amazing first drop, and you can get hang time in the front and whip in the back. Then you go through some very fun and floaty inversions with the corkscrew, 0G roll through the keyholes, and another roll. Overall, this ride is super smooth, and you don't really realize how big this ride really is until you're on it, and this ride is just overhated and just super fun. That's all I can say about it. It's just very fun, and it's a great ride. Third place is Millennium Force. This ride is just so good. The first drop is massive and has amazing floater all the way down. All the banked hills are pretty intense, even though they are pretty repetitive. And the sense of speed on this ride is elite and best out of all coasters that I've been on. The only thing about this ride is that the repetitive nature of the overbanks and the airtime hills aren't the best and pretty mediocre. But the Intamin T-bars are some of the best restraints that I've been on, and you really can't go wrong with a good ride on Millennium Force. Up next is Maverick. Maverick would be the best coaster in almost any park, but Cedar Point has one that I like just a little bit better. But Maverick is so good and has an amazing mix of elements. The first drop is elite and up there with Millie as the best in the park. And Maverick mixes in snappy turns and super strong ejector airtime. And this ride has a 70 mile/hour launch, which is amazing. And this ride has an elite ending with 2 super snappy stangle dives. This ride is amazing, but I wish the big bar for restraint was a little bit different. But other than that, this ride is near perfection and has a great layout. At the number 1 spot is Steel Vengeance. This isn't only the best ride at Cedar Point, but the best coaster that I've been on. This ride is everything I want in a roller coaster. It has an amazing first drop, loads of ejector airtime with some of the most ejector in the world. It has smooth inversions, a long layout with no dead spots, and overall there's nothing bad I could say about it. It's just perfect. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, vote on my community tab since I like making videos that you guys want to watch, but other than that, have a good day.